totally comfortable.
Totally comfortable.
Not totally comfortable. That is okay.
But you look very serene.
Well, thank you. Okay, good.
The illusion is complete.
Okay. I'm a 4. That's all I care about. No, that's not true at all. How many times are we doing this one?
How many
How
times
many times for I Will Build This World from Love?
should we feel it?
Oh, God.
I would say no more than 3.
You say 3, she says 4 or 5.
All right, so we're going to feel it. We're not
Okay.
We're not going to.
All right, I'm just going to look at you.
Feels done at 3. We're not going to go to 4.
Okay, that's fine.
To start.
Yep. We are up.
Here we go. Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Common Thread. We're going to get started with a song called I Will Build This World from Love. Can we all stand together and sing this? This is nice and upbeat. We have sung this for the last week or two. Should be pretty familiar if you've been here. I will build this world from love. La da da, la da da, la da da da. Will you build this world from love? La da da, la da da, la da da da. And if we build this world from love, la da da, la da da, la da da da, then God will build this world from love. La da da. Down a little softer. I will build this world from love. La da da, la da da, la da da da. Will you build this world from love? La da da, la da da, la da da da. Make it strong. If we build this world from love, la da da, la da da, la da da da. Then God will build this world from love. La da da, la da da, la da da da. Thanks so much for singing with us. Go ahead and have a seat.
Well, good morning. Good morning, friends. Sound very loud. Can you all hear me? I'm sure. Morning, friends. Welcome to Common Thread. We are a community working together all the time to discern how to build this world from love, so that divine light can build this world from love, the divine light that is in each of us and runs through all of us. And so if you are here, you belong. And we're so glad that you are here with us this morning. If you're a newcomer, a very special welcome to you. It's Newcomers Day, in fact. After the service, if you are new, or if you've been around a while and want to welcome some newcomers with Doug and me, come. Or if you want to get some orientation to the whole community, yeah, come on down the hall. Join us, room 205, I think that's where we're going to be. Or online, if you're watching us live, you'll hear details soon about how to join us remotely. And if you come, yeah, you're going to learn how our spiritual community has a very unique history while also being rooted in ancient wisdom. You'll get a sense of how we live in the present moment, even as we are looking toward our future with hope. And we'd like to invite you to consider being a part of that future. So please join us if you can, and if you can't, but you want to get to know us a little better, we would love to get to know you. Just click the QR code on the screen here, fill out the newcomer form, and if you do, we will send you a zero-pressure email to invite you to learn more about our community and perhaps to speak with someone from our community if you desire. We would love to connect with you there. And whether you're a newcomer, an old-timer, or anywhere in between, you no doubt have rough days. And when we have rough days in our culture, our tendency is to isolate, even as we know that's not the best way to deal with a rough day. Rough days are less rough when spiritual friends help us with them. So by joining us today, you've taken the first step if you are having a rough day. And we encourage you to take the second step if you're having a rough day. Reach out so we can help you bear your burdens. Each Sunday after the service, we have a trained listener waiting in the library down the hall who is happy to help you hold what you're carrying, or to perhaps help you reframe and see things from a different perspective. And today, Dawn is our listener. She's over there. So go see her if you need a little compassionate support. And at any time, you can always reach out for help by just clicking the QR code on this screen or reaching out to us through the website. One of our community care team members, people who have had others stand with them on their rough days and so know how life-giving that can be, are waiting to stand with you. So we'll reach back out to you to help you figure out how to stand with you through your difficult time. So let's say it together as we do each week with conviction. If you are here, you belong. We are every one of us carriers of the inner light. And we are every one of us carriers of divine breath. And if each one of us is a carrier of the inner light and a carrier of divine breath, I invite you to stand up and just chat with a fellow carrier of the inner light and divine breath and welcome them.
Good morning, friends. Here I am again this week inviting you personally to do more than watch the live stream. I'm here to invite you to connect with others in an online way. So the invitation is to connect online with folks who are on a similar spiritual journey, connect online with folks who are also exploring life and meaning in a way many of us didn't grow up in religion exploring. We humans, we do better at almost everything when we do it together. The spiritual journey is no exception. When we create spaces for one another to listen and to be listened to and to learn together and to grow alongside one another, when we ask the big questions together or find peace in uncertain times together, we just do it better. We do better together than we do alone. So that's why I'm here each week inviting you to overcome everybody's natural reticence.
How was your trip to...
Click one of the links in our
Right?
YouTube
Yeah,
notes. Maybe join an online
Italy,
discussion
that's
right after
right,
the
that's
lesson
right.
today. We got a newcomer
Right,
thing
you went to
going
New York,
on
but
that you
Italy.
can zoom into
So
right after
you've
the
already
lesson
gone on
today.
that trip.
Or
Wow.
get more
How was it?
information
Just
about
amazing.
other online groups, because we
Yeah.
do almost
Yeah.
everything we do.
Oh.
Also, there's an
You bummed
online
to be back?
version. Almost all the groups we have have
Yeah.
created welcoming spaces.
Yes, let's do it. Let's do that. A little espresso sounds perfect. Yeah, okay.
Create spaces we can show up together and listen and learn, share the journey. Again, doing better because we do it together. So I hope you click one of the links. Also, did you notice a marked improvement in the
Hazel,
quality
I don't
of our
mean to
live
say you're
stream?
one of the cutest babies I know.
I
and
cannot
diss all
tell
the
you
other
how
babies, but you are
frustrating
one of
it
the
has
cutest
been
babies I
taking
know.
2 years to get this. but we can now
We
send out our
do.
signal at a proper megapixel
Oh,
per
I'm sorry.
second rate.
I'm sorry.
You shouldn't be buffering anymore.
I
One of
understand.
our
I
remote community
understand.
folks told me that they could see the size of the pores on my skin. So what do you know about that? So finally, we've got that done.
Yeah.
Well, here's
It's good
what's
to-
going
it's
to come
good to
up
see you
next.
again. I hope
We're
you're
going
enjoying
to
it
try
so
and get
far.
rid of the double
It's going to be a
ugly
real
that goes
downer
on in
next
the
because we're talking
background
about grief. But hang in
behind
there.
behind the speaker. That is not as simple as
Hi.
it sounds
It's
because it
going.
turns
How are
out
you
that
doing?
different groups
Good. Good.
use
No,
the
always-
building, and we have
Oh, were you?
our
Okay,
own
yeah.
equipment, and we gotta not step on people's toes. So yeah, it's gonna take some
You always
time.
send them something.
But pretty soon, this thing is
Okay.
gonna be fine. All right, I'm standing up now, so that means we're ready.
Let me know, like, who seem like the good people to continue reaching out to, I guess is the thing. Yeah, let me know. I'm happy.
Muted it for the house. All right, my friends. This should be on now. Yeah, it is. So, if you missed last week, I'd encourage you to catch up on the lesson that Sue gave. She reconfigured how we think about the welcome prayer, and if you missed her lesson, you can catch up online. We're going to use that in the practice of the welcome prayer during our meditation time this morning. I let go of my compulsive desire for control, seeking to rest in divine power. I let go of my compulsive desire for security, seeking to rest in divine safety. And I let go of my compulsive desire for esteem, seeking to rest in divine love. That's the rephrasing. Again, go back, listen online. It's a great lesson. But today, we're going to use the welcome prayer in our meditation time. So go ahead and find a comfortable place there in your body, comfortable place in your mind. And go ahead and take a breath in and exhale and relax your body as you do. Do that a few times, breathing in and relaxing as you exhale. Let's take a moment and notice our bodies. And when we notice that there's a tension point, breathe and relax as we do. Check in with your face. Often we hold tension there through your jaw, your forehead, around your mouth. Breathe in. Let go of the tension. Check in around your neck and shoulders. Breathe in and let go. Check in with your chest and your belly area. Breathe in and let go. Check in with your upper back and lower back. Through your hips, continuing to breathe and let go. Legs and feet, arms and hands. Breathe in, welcome. Breathe out, let go. Welcome and let go. As we've been saying, that is the essence of the welcome prayer. Welcome, let go. breathing and letting go. And as we do when we practice the welcome prayer together, allow to come to mind a time this week in which we could have practiced the prayer. Maybe a moment of surging energy, afflictive emotion. Maybe a time when we were running on habit reacting or habit thinking, habit speaking, habit acting. Take a few moments as you breathe and allow a moment to come to mind. Holding that moment in your mind, let's practice the welcome prayer together. Repeating in your mind as I speak the words. Welcome and let go. Welcome and let go. Go of compulsive desire for control. Listen for inner divine power. Let go compulsive desire for security. Listen for inner divine safety. Let go compulsive desire for esteem. Listen for the depth of the inner voice of divine love. Welcome. Let go. Welcome. Let go. Today, let's see if another moment will come to mind. Maybe a moment that felt heavy, or difficult, or challenging. And simply do that breath prayer again. Welcome. Let go. Seeing that moment without going into problem-solving mode. Welcome. Let go. Continue that breath pattern for a few moments. Indwelling Divine, may we, in the moments of our day-to-day lives, be participants in welcoming the divine light, letting go of the false self. May be so as we go into the week before us. Amen. So when I first started leading these meditation moments on Sundays, I used to try and practice while I was leading it. And then I realized that's an exercise in futility. So I will lead it, and I will practice it another day. So what I do while you all are doing the practice is I look at you. And here's the thing. Every once in a while it happens that I get this irrational flood of love for you people. It's just crazy. And it just pulses in my chest. And I had one of those moments today. So anyway, I hope you will use the practice. It's been transformative for me. If you don't remember the words, don't worry about it. Just remember, welcome, let go. All right, here's some ways to connect in the community, ways to work the circle together, ways to practice the practices in a way that will be steadier and more consistent because we do them together, the communal practices, contemplative, learning and serving. Listen as we go through the things that are happening and see if one of those is for you for now. Today, what are you thinking on Zoom? We'll talk to you all online about that in a moment. Today is also the newcomers hybrid orientation, so I'm going to be doing that. Sue's going to be doing that. We're going to be in the conference room, the one with the really long table. If you've been here even for a while, but you've not been to one of the orientations, it's going to give you an understanding of why we do some of the, albeit unusual, admittedly unusual things that we do together as a community. So come and get a framework. We'll talk about, what's our story, what are our core principles, what are we going to do for a succession plan, and what's our invitation to people as they come to be part of the community. So those of you online, the password's going to be 1417, the same as joining the what are you thinking afterwards. So those are the things that we'll be talking about. I hope you participate in that. Let's see, we've also got a drop-in self-awareness group going on today. We've got Brew Crew at Bark Bar. I don't even know where that is. Urban Ministries food drive starts today. Where's Preston? I just saw him walk in. So go talk to Preston. You'll get all the details. There's going to be a virtual Lectio Divina on the 15th, a Braver Angels workshop. And let's talk about that Braver Angels workshop because this, one of the seminars seems particularly relevant. Skills for navigating your family and the political divide, because you might be aware, if you've been paying attention, that we've got an election coming up. You might not have heard, but if we've got an election coming up, you might also be aware that Thanksgiving is coming up, as is Christmas, and those two things being together, it might be helpful if you could speak creatively and engagingly and civilly about things that are differences. So yeah, this one seems pretty relevant coming up on Saturday. When I run through all the things that I do, you're always going to miss the details, but you'll always get the details in three places. You'll get them on our app, you'll get them on our website, front page, and you'll get them in the Thursday email when it comes out. So at the end of the newcomer orientation today, I'm going to say something like this. These principles that we've just been discussing, they are aspirations. We can only become that kind of community if we all make Common Thread that kind of community. That becomes kind of a truism once you decide that you're going to be a community-owned community and not a top-down community, not a clergy-led community. We can only become what we aspire to be when we all work to aspire to be those things. So that's vague. And that's kind of hard to pin down. So I heard a story recently that I'm going to try and put some texture to that. What does that mean for living as a community member of Common Thread? The story was this. I did a book club recently, the person said. It was about emotional intelligence. You might remember that one. It was last year sometime. And this person said, I did the book club, but went into it thinking to myself, you know what, I think I pretty much know this stuff, this emotionally intelligent stuff, because I've done the work, I've read a lot of books, I've done a lot of soul searching, so yeah, I went in thinking, this person said, I got this. But it wasn't this person said, until I was in the group and we were doing the exercises together that I saw, whoa, I really do suppress or ignore a lot of my feelings. Doing the exercises together with others, I started to realize how much emotional intelligence growth there still is out ahead of me. It wasn't till I came alongside others in the community that I realized how my emotional vocabulary was actually limited. And together with others, I started working to expand it. So, what do you know? Yeah, I got this. I did, and I really did know a lot. But I learned that any growth project that we undertake goes so much better when we do it alongside others doing it with us, which is why I say all the time, if you've got 10 units of energy to give to the community, give 8 of them to making friendships, because it's in the context of those friendships that our community becomes strong, but also we learn how to do this spiritual journey alongside one another. So it'll be your strength, it'll be the strength of our community, the strength of Common Thread. So again, I hope you'll come afterwards. Online folks, you just have to go to is it on the app or is it just on the website? The link to the newcomer orientation? Yeah. It's on the app, it's on the website. Just go and the password 1417. If you go to What Are You Thinking, it'll be easy. It's the same link. But if you don't, log in about 11:30 or 11:35. Okay, that's what's going on in the community. Hope you'll participate.
Please join us in this chant that we introduced last week, Speak Through the Earthquake. Speak through the earthquake, the flood and the fire. Oh, still small voice of love. Speak through the earthquake, the flood and the fire. Oh, still small voice of love. Speak through the earthquake, the flood and the fire. Oh, still small voice of love.
A reading from Quaker author and poet Parker Palmer. Suffering breaks our hearts, but there are 2 quite different ways for the heart to break. There's the brittle heart that breaks apart into 1,000 shards, a heart that takes us down as it explodes and is sometimes thrown like a grenade at the source of its pain. But then there's the supple heart, the one that breaks open, not apart, growing into greater capacity for the many forms of love. and it is only the supple heart that can hold suffering in a way that opens to new life. Most of you are aware that Doug has taken on a side gig as a wedding officiant. And I hear tell no one is better at this than he is, and some of you in this room here might be able to attest to that firsthand.
Damn straight.
That's what I hear. What most of you don't know is that I've also got a side gig going as a backup funeral officiant with a local funeral home. In fact, Doug and I have been joking that we should put up a billboard. You know, like one of those billboards with the serious-looking attorneys and their arms crossed back to back. Wherever you are in life, we got you covered. But all joking aside, I've also spoken at a few funerals right here for our friend Scott's daughter, Rebecca, and our own dear Sarah. And due in no small part to my lifelong, repeated, and intimate familiarity with grief, leading funerals is a really good fit for me. And it's an honor, it's a deep privilege, and a sacred trust. Now, part of the gig is crafting the services themselves, including the readings that can help loved ones begin to process the shock of loss and carry the weight of their pain. And in all the services I lead, I invariably include a take on what I just quoted from Parker Palmer's writing, because I have yet to find a more eloquent text on the importance of opening ourselves to the pain of grief, of what grief is, of how it can land in our hearts, and of what it can work in us. As is true for some of you, I'm sure, grief really has been a lifelong companion of mine. Many of you know I lost my closest brother when I was 22 years old, a seminal loss in my life that wrecked me and also set the stage for dealing with the many other losses that would come my way, such as the loss of my father and other family members, so many friends, and even students, each loss leaving its indelible mark. And the grief that comes with someone's death is intense, but it's not the only kind of grief I've dealt with. I've known the grief of divorcing the father of my children, the grief of lost jobs and lost dreams, the grief of not having the relationship I once had with my mother. Perhaps some of these kinds of losses resonate with some of you too. But perhaps the most generative of all my experiences of grief happened almost a decade ago, because that's when my life completely fell apart. In the spring of 2015, I'd been in a relationship for about 6 years, one that wasn't a legal marriage, but was otherwise functionally a marriage. My partner and I lived in a home in Briar Creek. We were building a real estate business, and my younger son was just about to graduate high school. We had a lot of things going on. The business was new but very promising. We traveled around the world, hosted and were invited to lots of dinners and parties. With her Eastern European accent and impeccable fashion sense, my partner was the charming one. With my Jersey attitude and complete lack of fashion sense, I was the grounded one. And people always commented on what a great and interesting couple we were. And on the surface, it seemed like we had it all. If I'd been more honest with myself about how my life was going at the time, I would have acknowledged that although it felt good for people to speak about what a great couple we were, actually, my partner and I were not very compatible, and our relationship was pretty stagnant. The real estate business might have boosted my sense of security and control, but it was not my jam. And to be honest, I hated living in our neighborhood. Devoid of trees, with relentless construction all around, it felt cold and sterile to me. But she and I were so in everything together, it didn't even occur to me to begin to find a way out. Fortunately, the way out was foisted upon me. Now, I don't have time, nor would it be appropriate to go into all the lurid details of what happened in this very public forum, but it all ended very suddenly, dramatically. A weird and wild story involving chicken salad, a music festival, and mud. So much mud. I was dumped out of the blue, and I was plunged headlong into Richard Rohr's phase of disorder that we talked about last week, when everything I thought was solid broke apart, when the ground beneath me felt like it gave way. I was so caught off guard that I was, let's say, not on my best behavior for a few weeks. Neither were the other parties involved, but this story is not about them. I raged against the reality of what was happening. I felt so betrayed. I got drunk one night. I made an ill-advised phone call to the other woman. You can fill in those blanks. I threw things. I went to church and prayed for different outcomes. I said some pretty awful words. Then I went to church to go to confession. My heart was, as I quoted Parker Palmer earlier, a brittle one, and it broke apart, broke into 1,000 shards, taking me down, exploding as I threw it like a grenade at the ostensible source of my pain. The harder I resisted, the faster things unraveled. The relationship was crashing and burning, which meant also that my job and income had an unexpectedly imminent expiration date, which meant also I was going to be leaving my home. And on top of all of this, an empty nest was just a few weeks away, with my not even knowing where that nest was going to eventually be. My reaction at first was anger. I was raging against all that was out of my control, against the security crumbling before my eyes, against the sense of rejection that damaged my self-esteem. All of it driven by the fear of my suddenly very uncertain future. And I very clearly remember the day I helped my son move out of the house into an apartment with his brother. My soon-to-be ex-partner helped as well, but just as we finished dropping off the rental truck and arrived back home, she went into the bedroom, packed a bag for a weekend getaway with her new person, and left. I heard her drive away, and then I sat in the silence of the living room. She was gone. My kids were gone. I had quit working for the business with nothing new lined up yet to keep me occupied. Alone on a Friday afternoon, with my anxious thoughts, my broken heart, my headache, and the empty pit in my stomach that felt like it would never be filled, I looked around the house I'd soon be leaving, the weight of this suddenly shattered life with all its hopes and dreams in tatters around me, and I wept, hard and long and finally. Because in that moment, without my quite being conscious of it, I quit raging. I quit resisting the suffering, and I just sat in the shit. I didn't know the welcome prayer here, but I prayed it here. In that corner chair, I prayed not with my words, but with my being, as I welcomed the grief. Might have been the truest welcome I had ever offered. I let go of my desire to control, to fix, to change what was happening. I let go of my desire for things to be different and simply allowed myself to sit with what was. It wasn't because I was spiritually enlightened or anything. Far from it in that moment. I was just depleted, exhausted, and spent. And sometimes that's what it takes to surrender to what is. And I'd like to say that made everything all better, but of course it didn't. It just put me in a place where instead of grasping for all the things that were well beyond my control, I was able to finally welcome my grief. I began to let it have its way with me, and boy, did it ever. So last week we began this series speaking about fear, how fear is rooted in uncertainty. We explored how our egos are always afraid of loss, and we grasp for what we think we can control, for what we think will keep us safe, for the love we desperately long to feel or hold on to. We are afraid of losing the things we have, the positions we hold, the people we love. And if fear is at the core of all our afflictive emotions, then what we fear is loss, including the ultimate loss in this world, our death being the only certain reality for each and every one of us. But every other loss we experience comes with its own kind of death, which leads us into the sacred space of grief, the unfathomably heart-wrenching, unmoored place of pain that will eventually, one way or another, visit us all. Grief is what we experience when we are forced to let go of the people we love, of our dreams, of the life we thought we were building. And it sucks. It's awful, It's painful. The rug gets pulled out from under us, and we're left with nothing but the raw, anguished ache of absence. And the process of coming to terms with a new reality that doesn't include what we once had or what we might have hoped to have. It might hit us like a freight train, sending us tumbling immediately into the void, or, especially if the loss feels like something we might be able to regain, we can resist it, and often do, from a place of fear that doesn't want to experience the pain. We might operate from those fear-driven egoic reactions, the ones that make us rage or throw things or try to change the situation. And for me 10 years ago, it wasn't until I sat down in that corner chair in that quiet living room and quit resisting my suffering that grief could begin to find its way in. And once it did, it had much work to do, very important work. In fact, as much as we want to avoid it, grief just might be the very most important work any of us does, or more accurately, the most important work we allow to be done in us. Some of this grief work is quiet, silent work, being still, not taking action, waiting patiently. For me, some of it required sitting in that chair in Briar Creek alone. Some of it required sitting in church, this time not to pray for different outcomes, but to continue to surrender and be with what was. And some of it very much requires community, the concrete experience of another holding the pain with us. I connected with a Stephen minister over at St. Francis who sat with me, listened to me, helped me bear my grief. I went to a divorce support group there as well, as a whole group of people who knew the contours of my particular pain held me up and in their hearts. And I had a small but fierce group of friends who let me word vomit my heartbreak in their kitchens and on their porches, who made space for me, who held me in love, who even let me sleep in their guest rooms in the space between leaving one home and finding the next. And what happens in the quiet spaces alone and the communal spaces of love is that grief moves us inward, where we are forced to reckon with who we really are. We come to learn that we are not our egos or all of the stories and things we tell about ourselves, the identities we cling to, the positions, the titles. We are none of those things. We are something deeper, something more, something that we find precisely in our anguish and in our emptiness, something we find when we inhabit a dark night of the soul. And it's the dark nights of the soul that are the doorways to spiritual growth if we allow them to be. As Richard Rohr reminds us, there can be no reorder without disorder. There can be no new arisings without the collapse of the old structures, no new life without some form of dying, a letting go of what once was before the new can emerge. And it's in this raw, anguished, vulnerable, open, empty space that genuine transformation is possible. In fact, of all the spiritual practices I talk about, none has been more powerful in my life than sitting with my grief and allowing it to work in me. That's why I was drawn to this beautiful book written by psychotherapist Francis Weller. Grief, Weller reminds me, is even more than I've said here so far. He speaks of grief as a necessary initiation, a profound rite of passage. And full participation in this rite requires the kind of supple heart that Parker Palmer talks about, one that breaks open, not apart, making room for something new to emerge. It's in this breaking open that we find what Weller poetically refers to as the wild edge of sorrow, the untamed liminal space where grief resides, a threshold that is both mysterious and transformative. It is wild because it cannot be neatly contained or controlled. It flows with its own rhythms. It defies societal norms that try to suppress or domesticate it. And it demands to be felt in its raw, primal intensity, in our bodies, where we physically inhabit the paradox of death and new life. And this grief exists at an edge because it lies at the boundary between the known and the unknown, between the familiar life we had and the uncertain territory we step into when we allow ourselves to feel the full weight of loss. In this sense, the edge is a place of confrontation and possibility, a space that holds the potential for deeper connection, healing, and even beauty if we are able to remain there without retreating into comfort or avoidance, if we can quit grasping for certainty that doesn't exist. Because when we allow ourselves to truly grieve, to feel the full weight of our losses without rushing to move on or numb the pain, over time, something remarkable happens. We begin to recognize that our grief is not just an expression of our sadness. It's where we open ourselves to a deeper experience of life, one where we can hold both the beauty and the pain, the love and the loss, without needing to reject or deny either one. And as we let our hearts become more supple, let them break open rather than apart, we make room for something new to emerge, something more tender, more vulnerable, and more alive. Our hearts continue to become even more supple, and on the other side of such a dying to self, we become even more alive. And perhaps the most paradoxical element of grief is that it is where we couldn't feel more alone, but are actually more deeply connected with all that is, more than we can ever know. It's the edge where we come to understand that our grief isn't something to be avoided, but something that deepens our humanity, expands our capacity for compassion, softens our hearts, and connects us more deeply to the world around us. As Parker Palmer says, it is only the supple heart that can hold suffering in a way that opens to new life. And as Weller tells us, it is our grief that makes our hearts supple in a way that no other life experience can. I found some measure of transformation and growth on the other side of every loss I've endured. When I finally welcomed my great loss 10 years ago, I came to eventually embrace this wild edge of sorrow and unwittingly made room for the most sacred unfoldings of my life to arise. First of all, I came to know in a whole new way how very much the people in my life loved and cared for me, because I was vulnerable enough to let them deep into my pain. A suspiciously well-timed job leading a startup in the end-of-life space came to me out of nowhere, one where I was able to do work that was very meaningful to me, that gave me the opportunity to meet others in their grief and radically deepen my sense of compassion for and connection with them. My grief led me to real soul-searching, coaching and therapy, the discovery of contemplative practices, even if I wasn't very good at them, and a deepening hunger for spiritual friendships. A few years later, that hunger for spiritual friendship led me to connect deeply with a new spiritual friend, a friend who, not long after we met, in fact, introduced me to the Parker Palmer quote that I began with this morning. And that's not the only reason I wound up falling in love with Maria, but it surely spoke to a profound reason why. Having spent a lifetime along her own wild edge of sorrow, her heart was supple enough for genuine connection, and her capacity for love was something I'd not known in a partner before. And it was our beginning to walk this journey together that led us to common thread, to find more spiritual friends who could be more in relationship with us like that. And through the years since, we have walked this wild edge of sorrow together as she has continued to be hit again and again by new layers of grief in her life. Grief for what she's lost, for what she never had, for how hard things never had to be. And I've found my own new pockets of grief to navigate, this time from a more grounded and rooted place, and this time with the love of my life and the love of this community of spiritual friends with whom we are so authentically connected through times of joy and times of sadness, a joy that is God's joy and a sadness that is God's sadness, all of it connecting us all to everyone and everything else through it. I wouldn't be standing here if it weren't for all that loss 10 years ago. I couldn't ever have seen it at the time when the shock, the sorrow, the loss is right here in front of your face, blinding you to all else. It is impossible to see. But in the midst of the chicken salad, the music festival, and the mud, my former partner's leaving me was probably the best thing that ever happened to me, once I was able to welcome the grief. Now, this might sound almost too quaint to some of you, yeah? Because I can tell you, you can't always see the fruits of grief so clearly. Sometimes you just have to trust that they grow in ways you may never know. And you surely cannot see these fruits before they begin to grow, which is invariably a long and slow process. If someone had told me while sitting in that chair in my living room that because of my pain, my best days were ahead, I'd have slapped them. If anyone had dared to tell me after my brother was killed that years later I'd lean on that experience to hold others up in their pain, I'd have said, shut up, I don't want to hear this. And I am certain that there are people in Western North Carolina right now who would want to throw something at me for daring to suggest that some kind of new arising might come from the apocalyptic devastation and destruction they are contending with. All that loss right in front of their faces, barely allowing them any room to breathe because, yes, they are grieving, and grief sucks. It's awful. It's painful. It's the most unfathomably heart-wrenching, unmoored place of pain we can ever possibly experience. And yet, when we step back from it, when we can see a bigger picture, we do see the new arisings. And sometimes we don't even have to wait. Sometimes they arise right in the midst of the grief. In the western part of our state right now, we see neighbors caring for neighbors, driven not from compulsive egoic desires, but from their heart connections. Many efforts are being initiated right here in Raleigh to bring supplies and offer whatever help we can. We see people coming together, joining rescue and relief efforts, raising money, pooling funds and resources. It touches all of us. The polarization in our nation softens. We can see through the illusion of our separation and feel a greater sense of compassion, of connectedness, of oneness. And we have no idea how many small acts of great kindness, goodness, steadfastness, and gentleness are rippling out from that collective dark night of the soul as spiritual nutrients for our hungry and hurting world. Why does it take a disaster for us to be our best to each other, we sometimes wonder? Well, perhaps because an emptied out place of loss and grief is the most fertile soil in which to plant the seeds of love, planted by people with supple hearts who can hold suffering in a way that opens to new life. But it doesn't have to take a disaster for us to hold each other in our grief. It just takes an honest reckoning with our own humanity, with our own experience of grief, because grief is the one experience in this world that unites us all together. We don't have a formal grief support group here at Common Thread yet. We find grief support in many of our groups and gatherings, I know, from life story groups to Brew Crew to the bonds of friendship we form here. But it can be a truly transformative experience to gather and intentionally hold grief together, to hold our grief communally, whether we are grieving the loss of a loved one, the loss of a relationship, the loss of a career, any kind of loss at all. If you're interested in possibly being part of such a group, just come talk to me or shoot me an email. And if enough of you reach out, it might be time for us to create an intentional space for us to work through our varied experiences of grief and hold each other together. And paradoxically, again, this is the kind of group that many of us would run from, but probably all of us could benefit from. Because at one point or another, each of us will find, or each of us has found, ourselves sitting in that proverbial chair alone with our grief. But we are never really alone. Our tears, our pain, our letting go, these are the experience that not only soften our hearts, but open us to the profound love and compassion of others. In the simplest and most gut-wrenching of spiritual practices, our surrender to our grief, we can find the wild edge of sorrow, where the depths of our pain give rise to the depths of our love. And we can do this together. As a spiritual community, we are here to help each other hold the grief, to sit together in the silence, and to remind one another that even when it feels like we are breaking apart, we are, in fact, breaking open. Together we become that fertile soil in which grief finds its way in, where love takes root and connects us all, where light arises out of darkness, and where, even if in ways we don't fully see yet or understand, something beautiful is always waiting to be born. And so, indwelling divine, as we make our way through the journey of grief, may we trust that in our brokenness, we are cradled in love, and from the depths of our surrender, new life will surely arise. Amen.
Art thou in the darkness, minded not? For if thou dost, it will feed thee more. But stand still and act not, and wait in patience till light arises out of darkness and leads thee. Art thou in the darkness, minded not? For if thou dost, it will feed thee more. But stand still and act not, and wait in patience till light arises out of darkness and leads thee.
Amen. So, folks on the live stream, can you see my pores? Been told our bandwidth is like eons better than it's been for a long time. So we are very hopeful that all of our live streaming issues have been resolved, and we know that you'll tell us if they haven't been. We also know you're going to tell us if they have, at least those of you who are with us on the regular. We have a robust remote community of folks who meet on the regular, watch our services, and then get together for What Are You Thinking online on the Zoom chat. And so if you aren't a regular, you might feel a little hesitant to get on there and talk with these folks, but I'm telling you, these are some of the best folks I know. They are so friendly, they are so warm, and they will get together, they'll talk about this lesson, or they'll talk about their lives, or talk about all the things. They would love to have you join them. So just click on the YouTube comments, there's a link there to join What Are You Thinking online, click show up, spend some time with these folks, and then, as we mentioned earlier, it would be great if you came and joined the newcomer hybrid orientation afterwards. It's the same link, so just stay on there if you want to join us at 11:30. If you are not watching us live, you can't really do either of those things right now, but what you can do is click the link that's in another of those comments under the YouTube to get some more information. It's sort of a very particular remote community, newcomers welcome. So if you click there, just let us know that you're interested and get some more information. Somebody will reach out to you. We would love to be able to connect with you that way. So with that, folks in the room, can we dismiss our friends on the live stream by putting one hand on our hearts and remembering that the inner light, our truest, deepest self, the divine light, divine breath is in us, which means that the fruit of the Spirit, goodness, kindness, patience, steadfastness, self-control, all those things are in us, and we nurture them all the time that we might share them with the rest of the world. And so let's extend our other hand out to our city and to the rest of the world committing as we do to share what is in us with them, with everyone, with whom we live, with whom we work, with whom we go to school, everyone we encounter, taking seriously our commitment to be healers and repairers of our world. Amen. All right, folks on the live stream, God bless you, love you. We'll talk with you soon in the Newcomers Hybrid Orientation. And if everybody else here wants to just kind of take a moment, take a few deep breaths, get calm and grounded,